Conversations across time. 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 Conversations across time.
Good evening. Welcome to Conversations Across Time. As you will note, I am very hoarse, but we are going to get through this because what we're talking about tonight is so important that wild horses couldn't keep us away. Tonight, I am joined by our historian, Mark Hoffman.
It's good to be here myself.
As yourself. And seated next to Mark Hoffman is my dear friend who is always here and plays a lot of characters also, Mr. Madnick. Welcome, Irv. Your background as an attorney is going to be wonderful for us tonight. Seated next to Madnick is John Mason. John Mason is the resident bad boy. He plays all the bad characters. Tonight, John Mason is John Mason.
Yes, I have a wonderful self, so that's why I'm playing as myself.
It's true. It's true. We agree. And to my left is my co-host, who's always here, Babette Josephs. So I apologize for my voice, but we got to be here and we have to talk about this. Tonight, we are here to talk about the role of women in Trump's America. So I'm not going to be talking that much, but I'm going to ask a question to start this off. And that is, does anyone here have an opinion as to what would have happened if Christine Ford had been Anita Hill? Would Clarence Thomas be on the Supreme Court? And if indeed, as a white woman, that would have precluded Clarence Thomas,
yes,
what does that mean for Kavanaugh and how and what they think about women? Anyone can jump in.
Well, Thomas definitely wouldn't be on the Supreme Court.
I think so.
And to me, the Trumpsters and the Trumpettes, the two things that motivate them the most, in my opinion, are going back to a male-dominated society and going back to a society where African Americans or blacks know their place, or immigrants know their place.
Well,
and I think that's what the cultural war is right now.
And most of the wealth is being controlled by a very small number of people, men.
Right.
But the Kavanaugh situation today is not a question of black and white.
No, it's
I
not.
mean, that would have obviously complicated the situation back
Right.
in 20-some years ago. But
Yes.
that's not the situation today.
Yes,
But the same, excuse me 1 second, John. The same male dominance over women persists today. In other words, the lessons that should have been learned in the Anita Hill, in the confirmation hearing at that time, those lessons should have been learned and should have been applied today. And it looked as if they were going to do that. They were trying to be as soft-spoken to the woman who was the accuser in this case. They had a female prosecutor question her.
You're talking about people questioning Christine.
Yeah. And
Ford.
they tried to make the optics of it seem as if the change had taken place.
Right.
But the bottom line is, and here we stand a day or two before apparently the Senate vote, and it seems clear to me, and I hope I'm wrong, but it seems clear to me that the Republicans, being in control, even though it's only 51-49, will probably confirm Kavanaugh, notwithstanding whatever they did, notwithstanding the optics of it. And what's happened today and yesterday, I mean, the optics of this thing have been thrown out the window because they know that it's a difficult
They
situation.
changed it because when Kavanaugh came out and he was, rude, and he attacked people.
He was arrogant. And
Arrogant. They fed into it. And in fact, when the appointed prosecutor was asking legitimate questions to Kavanaugh, eventually they didn't want to see that anymore, the Republicans. That's when she ceded her time to Lindsey Graham, and Lindsey Graham went on his asinine tirade. And so now they want this cultural war. And the recent poll showed that the Trump supporters want this cultural war. They want Kavanaugh. They like the attack on women. Trump himself in the rally last evening attacked Dr. Ford in every way you possibly could, because they want this cultural war. The cultural war is to turn back the clock to a male-dominated, white-dominated society.
Right.
And
There's no doubt of that.
And
I mean, it's obvious.
Class definitely plays a role in this.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Kavanaugh. I mean, he's this affluent white kid from.
But you know what
upscale-
amazes me? He's
Please,
Catholic.
This affluent white kid from this affluent family. I mean, he brags about how he busted his tail to get to Yale, whereas his grandfather was an alumnus, and all the stories about his partying with and some of the partying and getting away with it, and getting away with all kind of crap with girls. I mean, it's a part of his class. I mean,
But that-
it's the same class that feels entitled to do whatever they want to whoever they want.
Right.
Babette, you were getting ready to say something about the school he went to.
Oh, actually, I was going to say in some ways the ruling class support for Kavanaugh surprises me, because he seems so Catholic and they're not Catholic. They're Protestants.
Well,
Yes.
there's not a Protestant on the Supreme Court now.
That's right.
They're all Jews and Catholics,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's not a
It's
Protestant.
weird. It's very weird when you think about it through
But-
that
but-
lens.
Class trumps
the thing is,
religion any time. I mean, it's a class society. It's not.
Obviously.
the thing that scares me and is the trend of history, and you know, it's ups and downs, and women are going to have more rights and less rights, but you have too many similarities in the attitude of the people that support Kavanaugh and Trump to the attitude and the rules in Nazi Germany. And John knows it and I know it, is the Germans, Hitler had a certain Kinderküche Kirche, which
Right.
meant children, kitchen, religion, go to church. And
KKK.
well, that's no total irony, but anyway, that's what they believe. I mean, when people talk about women should be barefoot and pregnant, they truly believe that. That's
Right.
the problem. They truly
Yes.
believe that. They don't. I think you were talking, John,
And
about
Trump
a
believes
woman
that.
in Missouri said she don't see anything wrong with Kavanaugh feeling up the doctor.
I mean, or any girl. I mean, hey, what? I mean, well, if it's her own daughters. Of course, there are a lot of parents who think their own children, if the price is right, are expendable. I mean, just throw your kids to the
But-
wolves.
Well, they're girls
Wait,
anyway.
wait. Let me just interrupt and look at this from a legal perspective. Kavanaugh, even though everything he believes in is anti what I believe in,
Yes.
from a political standpoint and from an interpretation of the
And
Constitution
human
standpoint.
rights and all.
One thing that we can't overlook is that he's a very, very, very bright guy. And he's been very, very successful as a judge in the second highest court in the land.
Well, what do you mean successful? Successful means, I mean, what does that mean?
It mean-
That he
it means
ruled
that-
in favor of business?
It means he's been an
it-
appellate court judge.
but you
for
can't.
9 or-
What, how do you define a successful judge?
Well,
No,
I'm saying he's in his own right. He's successful.
The fact
I mean,
that
he's
he's a
followed
federal
his own.
court judge.
He's followed his own theories,
Yeah.
and he's applied them as an appellate court judge. Whether or not I believe that
Yeah,
or
but-
not, I mean,
Well, you
he
could
hasn't
say,
abrogated the
right.
Constitution.
You could say he wasn't drunk on the bench, or he didn't act stupid, or his rulings are based
for
in the
some people,
Constitution.
that's
But I
success.
don't.
But that's
I don't like
exactly
the
what I
word.
said.
You know, but you said successful. I don't know what successful means when it comes.
Successful to him and successful to the people who believe in him.
Oh, well, that's why he's
Well,
got. That's
but the
why he's
point
nominated
is-
for the Supreme Court.
Absolutely.
right.
So technically, if he didn't have any contentious, hearing before the senator's confirmation hearing, if any issues that were contentious came up,
I don't.
there would be no reason.
No, it took 3 years before they confirmed him for the appellate court. He had so many questions, and he was an appointment without confirmation before they confirmed
Well,
him.
it was a political appointment, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, right.
Wasn't it
So what I'm
judge?
saying is his qualifications have been questioned, not his qualifications mentally as a legal scholar, but his qualifications as a human being
As an
and
American.
as an American have been questioned
Yes.
going way back to before he was appointed to the appellate court.
And they were questioned, and he was approved every time.
Well, supposedly he
point
lied
is,
in that hearing.
is he
Supposedly he lied in that hearing.
technically
Supposedly
qualified
he
to be
lied
a
in that
Supreme Court
hearing
justice?
about
That's
stealing
an
the
issue.
emails.
But
Now,
here's the thing, the legal issue. Is he qualified to be a jurist? That's your point.
The point is that up until this contentious hearing, and up until the things happened at this hearing, I'd have to say, even though I don't believe in anything basically that he believes in, I don't believe in what he believes in and the Federalist Society does about the originalism of the Constitution and the strict interpretation of the Constitution.
And the
I don't
powers
believe in
of
those things.
president and all
And I
that.
never was taught those things in law school. But, and it's a big but, until these hearings, until this last hearing especially, there would have been no real reason to say that he shouldn't sit on the Supreme Court, except for the fact that you don't believe in all of those propositions. But, and there's a big but here, the thing that's most important to me is that during these hearings, and I know that it's a he said, she said situation with Dr. Ford, and I mean, after her testimony, I think everybody had to say that her testimony was credible.
Right.
And he came out, and the way he defended himself, and the way he attacked the Democrats, and the way he showed his partisanship and his not particularly judicial temperament that he had,
Oh, God.
his intemperance, and that changed the whole picture for me. And that
Well-
would be a reason for me, if I had a vote, which I don't, that would be a reason for me. Not that he lied about how much beer he drank or didn't drink, or whether he was here or wasn't
Well,
there. It was
I
36
have a
years
question.
ago. That's
I have
hard.
a question.
That's hard to support.
When you're finished,
but
I have a
the point,
question.
the temperate, judicious issue, I think, is the most important thing, and the partisanship that he showed
Here's my
is
question.
the most important thing that.
How
and the reason
many
why
of
he shouldn't be
us
appointed.
have been in contact with our U.S. senators to tell them what we think? I have been.
Well, I have too, but
It's a good thing to get to me.
you can't get through. You got to call them in Allentown.
Yeah.
But
didn't call them, I emailed
getting
them.
back to the woman. Suppose and there were, and I have the names here.
And
There
everybody's
were
watching
5
here.
women that were given to Trump. Names were given to Trump from the Federalist Society. I'm not going to name all the women,
Sure.
but just let's assume for a second that the name one. Her name's Babette. If she came before the Judiciary
Yes.
Committee, hysterical, saying, when I went to the dance with my friend and started crying, and my calendar said we were going out with Biffy and Buffy and started crying, they would have dismissed her immediately,
Right,
and the
exactly.
nomination would have been withdrawn.
I agree.
Regardless of, and all these women were
I agree.
recommended just as highly as Kavanaugh by the Federalist Society, can name them Sykes, Id, Larson, Grant, and Barnett. They were all recommended just as highly. If they had acted the way Kavanaugh did, crying over talking about lifting weights with PJ and crying, they would have thrown her. It would have been the.
I agree.
Ma'am,
No,
you
you're
should.
right.
You have to withdraw. So that
I
just.
will not fight with you. You're absolutely right.
Okay.
But it's
I mean,
okay.
that's okay, but that, I don't think that
It's
that's,
It's
that's
okay
not an
anymore
issue.
for
Well,
men
if
to cry, but,
it's enough to disqualify a woman,
Right.
it should be enough to
and that's-
disqualify a man. That's what I'm saying.
Time out. It
It's
hasn't
temperament.
disqualified a woman yet. I mean,
Well, they haven't
They
acted
don't-
that way.
They don't ever
Women-
interview
They
don't-
women.
Yeah, they didn't act that way.
there were 3 women on the Supreme Court. and
But
there
they
were-
never acted that way in the
Well,
hearing.
they
They
were-
never acted.
but-
They didn't even come close to acting the
that's
way
what
he
I'm
acted.
saying his actions were despicable at the hearing. I'm not saying that they weren't.
Or even if they admitted being drunk. You say it doesn't matter.
Oh,
If
I
the
don't know.
woman said, I used to get wasted in the sorority parties at college.
end of her.
See you later, lady.
The end of her.
Maybe.
And how about the
That's
Lindsey Graham, the
speculation.
way that he behaved? I mean, I mean, he went on a bit of a screen
Okay,
himself.
so let me ask this question. Let me ask this question.
He even said, Lindsey Grant even said, I'm a single white man from the South. He even said it. He even said it. What else you have to see?
Yeah, but he's
Okay,
allowed. He's
so-
allowed
He
to be.
even said it. I'm a
Wait
single
second.
white man from the South. He's telling you where it's at.
But here's the point:
Yes.
a senator is allowed to be partisan.
Yes.
They are partisan. They are political.
Yeah, but
he's
But a
telling you
judge
what the
can't be.
movement
We're
is.
talking about the judge. We're not talking about Lindsey Graham.
Ideally,
Whatever
a
he
judge
said was
is,
horrible,
but-
but it's okay because that's what he's supposed to say.
Ideally,
the
a
point
judge
is that
is-
we're talking about the judge. And the judge
No,
shouldn't
we're
be in the
talking
same
about-
position as Lindsey
We're
Graham.
talking about
Right,
the
I
different
agree.
standards for men and
One at a
women,
time.
his attitude toward women. That's what we're talking
Well,
about.
and I said that in the beginning. I said the attitude hasn't changed at all
Right.
in the years since the Thomas confirmation. I mean, I understand
But-
Or
that.
even the start of feminism.
But Mark, I get your point that if Dr. Ford had come in and challenged those senators,
Should have been
challenged the
discredited
prosecutor,
immediately.
they would have, see?
Right.
That would have, because women are not allowed to portray themselves and feel emotional. They have to go the other
I
step.
throw
They have
this
to be
que-
very calm.
I throw
agree.
the question
I
out
agree.
to the panel.
There's no
The,
doubt in my
the
mind.
5
you're
women
right.
I named are philosophically more conservative than Kavanaugh.
That's hard to.
They are.
Oh, okay.
It's hard to
And they were
imagine, but I
recommended
expect it.
very
It's
highly
true.
by the Federalist Society. Then question is, and why pick Kavanaugh?
And you know why.
You know
Well, he
why.
picked Kavanaugh apparently because, and I don't know that this is necessarily so, but because he believed in a more expansive role of the executive.
That's
He
exactly.
that-
believes in the imperial
and-
presidency,
and-
which
right,
is.
exactly.
Yeah,
So
imperial
that may be the case. And
Yeah,
there's a
Kavanaugh-
couple of cases. that
But
are coming up.
Kavanaugh
I-
wrote this,
even
Kavanaugh
if he
wrote this, sorry, Kavanaugh wrote this piece, I mean, essay or whatever, saying that it was a terrible decision for the Supreme Court to order Nixon to give up the Watergate tapes. And it's like Kavanaugh's been
But-
opposing any limitation of presidential
He's
power.
into imperial presidencies, and
Yeah,
I
but-
am
He
not.
could be indicted for anything.
I-
He could
The
be
issue is-
I
the issue is about
contend,
subpoenaing
and this is
evidence.
just, I can't prove it, that even if he didn't have the imperial presidency philosophy, that Trump would never have nominated a woman for the Supreme Court. That's
Right.
just my feeling.
Right.
If he was
he's a-
smart, he probably would have.
he's a
That's right,
misogynist.
but
I agree with it.
he is.
I don't know whether
he
he
is
would have.
constitutionally incapable of admitting a woman would be qualified that role. That's just my
Well,
opinion
Well,
of
he's
Trump.
constitutionally incapable of thinking that anybody is smarter than he is, and certainly women are not.
He does
Certainly
have a big
women are.
brain. He said he had a big brain.
Yes.
the best words.
Yes.
But he's also getting really romantic. He's falling in love with Kim.
Kim Jong-un.
Yeah, he said he said that
He
you know,
probably-
they've
I
been
would-
talking
I
and they
would
fell in
warn-
love.
But he committed a major faux pas yesterday.
I would warn
Because up
him.
until yesterday, I'm talking about the president.
Yes.
Up until yesterday, it was mostly a kid glove, hands off, Dr. Ford and her testimony, and leave it as a he said, she said, not a she said. Not the she
Seashell.
said. She said something else.
By the
She said,
seashore.
Yeah, she said. Situation. But when he came out yesterday and ridiculed her testimony and made light of it, that turned it around for. I
Do you
would
think
hope,
it's going to change the votes?
No, but I
Well-
hope it would.
No,
for
but we're gonna
Collins
see
and for
more women
Murkowski,
running
for the
for
women,
office.
for the women that have to vote on it.
But you-
I would think that would help that position. Now, if they go ahead and vote on it in favor of him,
They will.
regardless of this.
So,
well, that's
so
their, that's
even
their
if you
situation.
go out to
They
vote,
will.
unless they pack the Supreme Court and we get enough Democrats on the House and the Senate, he's what is he, 47? He could be on the Supreme Court for 40 years. You're going to have any women,
53.
any worker, any minority attitude on the
And
Supreme
you know
Court
what?
for 40 years.
I would hope that the outcome that would happen among citizens is that more of us start to get active. More of us read the papers. More of us get registered to vote. More of us vote. And that's the antidote
That would
to
be
this.
the ideal, but when a lot
I'm
of people...
hopeful, always
right,
hopeful.
when a lot of people see this, and especially if after what Trump did last night,
Yes.
and if Senator Collins, Senator Murkowski, and Senator Flake vote to confirm him,
I believe they will.
Two things can happen. People could be aroused to go out and really overturn the system.
Yep.
Or, unfortunately, the other thing can happen, which I hope doesn't, they can throw in the towel and say it's hopeless. Look who they put on the Supreme Court. Now, I hope that doesn't happen.
I don't think that happens.
I don't think it'll happen in this
Neither do I.
election cycle.
We
I don't
have,
think it'll
we
happen.
have young people, men, but mostly lots of women. Their whole life is ahead of them. They're in college, or they're that age, or they're graduates, or they're in professional school. They believe in themselves. They believe that they can be good parents, good family members, good professionals, good job holders, good citizens, and women can do that. We've been doing it for years and years.
Women can,
And we
and
will,
ever since,
I
by the way, ever
believe.
since the late 60s when
I believe we will.
consciousness raising and burning bras and independence of women came along, I would have thought then that by this time,
Right.
50 years later, women
It's a
would
big
be
struggle.
held in a
It's a big
higher
struggle.
position than they are, and they're
No,
not.
it's a struggle.
And what it seems to me is that the process, even though this is giving it another jump start here, the Me Too movement, I think it's still a process that's going to take many, many more years for women to have
I don't
equal
argue.
footing.
How
I really,
many?
I believe that.
How many? Do you think it's decades? Or we talking
I
about-
think it's the same thing as the black movement. You know,
And the
when you look at school,
It's
the school
biblical.
board case, and you look at the
It's
voting rights
biblical.
cases in the 60s, around the same time. And sure, there have been some advancements, but there's certainly nowhere near equality where it should be.
Well,
and I think it's going to
I hate to throw a wet blanket on this. It's going to take a long time because culturally, forget just the political culture, you got all the major religions are dominated by men. They're patriarchal. So people grow up, if they go to church, seeing that the male minister to dominate the church is fire and brimstone, and the
That's
Supreme
more
Court,
Catholics
they're
than
all
other Protestants.
Catholics,
No.
the priest, and Orthodox
There's Orthodox,
Judaism,
right.
conservative, Islam. You
Evangelicals
can't,
amongst the Protestants,
right? You can't get
the
any
Catholics.
more male-dominated than Islam. So not only do you have to change the political landscape.
Well, I'm not so sure you're right about Islam. I think there's a lot of Muslim women would fight with you about that.
Yeah, talk to them in Saudi Arabia. The point is,
I'm not talking about the women that would fight. I'm
doesn't make
talking
any
about the
difference.
philosophy of the religion. And there's
Yeah,
many.
but
I know a million Jewish
you
women that are
give-
feminists, but that doesn't change the philosophy
give us
of the
the
religion.
worst country.
the whole thing about this Kavanaugh at this point, the biggest argument was that he was going to overturn Roe versus Wade.
right.
They'll
Well,
be
when you
sorry
look back
if they
at Roe
do
v.
that.
Wade, what's the basic argument? The basic argument is a religious argument. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, abortion is a religious thing. These religions are against abortion
Right.
because
I hope they
it's
do
killing
it.
a person. So it's
I
the
hope they
religious
do it.
argument. And
But there's-
if that was taken out of the equation,
I hope
That's
there's
they
what-
nothing
do
to
it.
argue about him.
Yeah,
Irv, that's what they say. The reason is,
point
but
where-
the most religions had restrictions on abortion because they were competing and they needed more people.
Yes, of course.
And they needed more people. And
And-
Nazi Germany outlawed abortions for the same reason. Now,
Well, it also-
they put it in a human rights framework, but it's more of how do I get more people
It's-
because I got to
it's-
outnumber you.
Yeah, but
It's not
I
only
don't think
that.
that's
It's
what
not
it is
only
today. I
that.
think
It's
it really
bare-
is.
Well, no,
Barefoot.
it's part of the dogma of religion, but I'm
It's
talking about
barefoot.
why it came that way.
Barefoot, naked, and behind the plow.
Right.
Yes,
The
And by the way,
children
it's not
are
only Roe v. Wade, it's not
incidental.
only abortion.
Incidental.
What about LGBT rights? Look at the cases that have come before the Supreme Court about bathrooms for transgenders, about preparing a cake for
How
a gay
about
couple.
raping your wife?
Well, raping your wife is not an LGBT thing.
No, I'm saying, but religion said it was okay
One
if
would
you were
hope not.
married, you could rape your wife.
There's
Yes,
something
of
wrong-
course.
You
She
can't
was
rape
your
your wife.
property.
And
Right.
But really, I mean,
And
these are all
what's her
social
name?
issues
Ivana-
that shouldn't even be part of the
Ivana
body
Trump
politic.
accused him of raping her in
Right.
a divorce thing. And his
Right.
lawyer, the great Michael Cohen, the great legal mind, said a man cannot rape his wife.
Yes.
Oh, he was a defendant
In
of that.
some,
But the
in
point,
some
Oh, yeah.
states
the
you
point
can.
is, all of these
Pennsylvania
social
is one of
issues are
them,
what
I believe.
separates people in favor and people against them. All these social issues are part of the religious ethic.
That's
all
true.
of them.
That's true.
Right, and they've
So
all been
that's what the
translated
issue
into
is.
the
So,
political life.
Does religion take precedence over
Well, so-
the Constitution, over due process, over the right to do this or that because of religion? Religion definitely, there's freedom of religion. But what freedom of religion, what that was meant to be was that people had the right to observe whatever they wanted to observe as far as religion was concerned. Not that religion would take a front seat to all of the rights that people have.
But
I don't
just as-
think,
just
I think
as-
that's a very, very important issue, and I
Just
think
as
that's
Ba-
what's behind all of
And
this.
that's what Babette, when she talks about it, this has been, these religious values have been codified into the law.
That is true.
Right,
Well,
but
the
the
evangelicals now.
if the
they
relig-
hate Trump, what he says,
But
how
they're
he
all
acts,
for him.
what he did, but they love him because he's appointing people to the Supreme Court that are going to
Well, they love him 'cause they like his policies
Their
to
values
begin
They
with.
also
over the
like his
Constitution.
attitude toward women because they're all patriarchal.
But
Yes,
the women
yes.
the women still voted for him because
Well,
they
well,
know that
well,
he's going to appoint people that are going to do what their religion says is the right thing to do.
I don't think women are going to vote this time for him.
Who?
Women.
They're
I
not
don't
gonna vote
think.
for him?
No.
There's
Did
going
you
to be a
see-
lot of women that vote for him.
Did you
Yes,
see
of course, there
the
were a lot of
rally?
Listen,
women.
I saw when he was running for president after the Access Hollywood tapes,
Yeah, I
there
said
were
the same
women
thing.
wearing
Yeah.
Trump
Yes.
T-shirts saying, "You can grab my."
I'm not arguing with you, but I don't think it's going to be repeated itself.
Okay, so
I
hold
don't
on.
think it's going to happen
Okay.
again.
But by the way, in the presidential election, he had a significant number of college-educated
white
I don't
white
think
women that
that's
voted
going
for
to
him.
happen again.
Why?
I don't-
Why would
why? That's a good
women like
question.
that,
Why?
vote for Mr. Grevin by the?
Because they
Well,
don't pay
because
attention.
a lot of things. They thought he was a good businessman, which is a sham, of course. They
Right.
thought, a lot of them were religious, and they thought. And by the way,
How
when
ba-
you see anti-abortion people running around, I mean, most of the protesters are women.
How about Hillary?
Well,
A lot of women
Hillary,
didn't
yeah.
vote
It was a
because
protest
they don't
vote
like
against
Hillary.
That's true.
They didn't
too.
like Hillary. Not they didn't like Hillary policy. They didn't want a woman to be president.
Right,
they
I agree.
were brainwashed, and a woman
I
shouldn't
agree,
have
but
that
I
role. They were
think
brainwashed.
things are changing.
Okay, so what I want to do.
We will see.
What I want to do is I want to end this episode with a statistic. This morning, which is the day that we are taping, is October 3rd. 54% of Republicans state, this is a poll that was just done last night, 54% of Republicans, men and women, state that even if the allegations are true, Kavanaugh should be confirmed.
Right.
Yes, because he's going to vote their way. Like with Trump, a drunken whore master, an incompetent businessman, but he talks the way they want to talk. It's not so much religious values as race has a lot to do with it.
Yes.
The way
Social stuff in
So-
the
general.
way he talked about
Economic competition.
yes, and the way he talked about his birthrights. He's
But
big
wait
on
a
the birthrights.
minute, put a
thing.
pin in
Yeah.
that because we're going to pick it up next week. But I want to make sure that we leave the audience with that thought. 54% of Republicans, men and women, despite the testimony that we thought was very credible,
I have something to say, but I'll wait till next week.
despite the testimony we thought was very credible, despite the performance that we saw that was he displayed a complete lack of judicial temperament, to Irv's point. Despite that, 54% of all Republicans think he should be confirmed.
So when Trump said, "I can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue
Yes.
and they'd still
Yes,
vote
he
for
was
me
right.
as long as you give me the conservative on the
Exactly.
Supreme Court."
Right.
Yes. We will see you next week. We hope that we get your juices going as much as we are. Thank you so much.
Conversations across time, 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 conversations across time.